Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Friday the 31st of January 2020. And originally we were going to provide our gold and silver prediction for 2020. However, the recent epidemic of the coronavirus has to some extent affected the picture, certainly short to medium term. And we are currently evaluating that effect on what we believe will happen to gold and silver prices throughout this year. So we are delaying just slightly, a few days, our prediction video. So we will be publishing this now early next week rather than today as was originally planned. And it is on the basis of the coronavirus and its update, we're going to have a discussion with controversially Greg, who has promised to keep us up to date on a regular basis. So let's just make sure Greg is on the line. Greg, can you hear me?
I am indeed. Good evening. It's 18:29 GMT on the 31st, and it's 4 hours and a few minutes to Brexit.
And on that note, Greg, why are you speaking to me and not out partying?
I don't think that there is suitable case for going out to receive abuse from the ill-mannered, bullying oafs who represent Remain. I would rather quietly enjoy the fact that what I have been doing since the early 1960s has finally paid off. Yes, we have a long way to go in terms of negotiation of a deal, but we are doing it with a somewhat stronger hand than ever before. We leave the European Union today, and we have till the 31st of December to agree a trade deal. However, we are in a position in that we have a government with a strong majority to tell the European Union we find their terms unsatisfactory if they start playing the fool, because at the end of the day, we could leave the European Union on a World Trade Organization non-bespoke agreement. They are obliged under international law to offer, at very least, World Trade Organization agreements. And when you think there are some 160 countries around the world that trade with the European Union without a bespoke deal, I believe that with the 6th largest economy on the planet, and with our international connections and the strength of the Anglosphere and our many allies, we would have no difficulty trading with the European Union. And if they want to be stupid, we'll just sit back and rake in the fines that will be laid on them as compensation for them being obdurate. We would like, by December the 31st, to have an amicable agreement as an independent sovereign nation. We will not be bound by the European courts, as they no longer have any material authority over us. We will not be bound by open borders to accept what the European Union wishes to impose on us. We will not be bound by having to pay their bills. We will be independent. Now, they may wish, for the sake of the fact that they export a great deal more to us than we export to them. So Britain is a large income source for them in currency gained from export to Britain. We are a stable economy. We are a very large economy. And although up until 11 o'clock this evening, GMT, and the reason for it being 11 o'clock is Europe doesn't even run on the same time zone as Britain. It's an hour ahead. The reason that it's 11 o'clock is we have accepted that it really doesn't matter if we call it 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock when we leave. But leave we will this evening. And many of us will be very happy to see it. I see no merit in being a vassal region within a supranational, undemocratic bureaucracy. Thank you very much. Thank you and goodbye, and thank you for all the fish, because we are going to hang on to, just like in the cafe at the end of the universe, we are going to be hanging on to ownership of our own fisheries. That is one of the red lines that we have decided on, in that at the moment we own something like 13% of the total sea area of the 28 European countries, as they are up until 11 o'clock. Yet we only receive a quota of being allowed to catch 3% of the fish, which is, like so many things in the European Union, totally unjust and utterly corrupt. And we have great maritime nations like Luxembourg, Monaco, Austria, and the like, with quotas to fish in British water. That will end. So I'm very pleased to see us leaving the European Union. I hope we can reach an amicable agreement, but if the European Union wishes to be obdurate about it, so be it. It must be remembered from the point of view of global detail that they have 28 countries are members. However, the size of our economy, if evened out across those 28 members, means that that number will drop from 28 to approximately 9 or 10, which is the equivalent in value of Britain's economy leaving, bearing in mind that many of the member states, or more realistically, member regions of the European Union, are tiny, with virtually no economy. The population of Denmark is rather less than some of our cities. So to skew the figures and call it 28 members and we're only one of them doesn't actually amount to a hill of beans in terms of conveying the value of Britain. We'll survive. We will do well. The IMF is saying that we will for at least 2 or 3 years, having a booming economy relative to a fairly stagnant European Union economy, minded that with our massive contributions to the European Union ending, they will have a massive hole in their budget that it will be exceptionally difficult for them to patch over. So, since you asked, I'm not going out partying. I'm expecting difficulties. I'm expecting a lot of hard work from our politicians to get us the best deal. But I also am prepared to leave without a bespoke deal, much as I would dislike it, on the 31st of December 2020. Sorry,
Well,
that
Greg,
has little or nothing to do with coronavirus.
no, well, you and I are probably like those two old geezers on Sesame Street. I too have been invited this evening to 3 parties, 3 Brexit parties, and I'm going to none of them. I'm sitting here with a glass or 2 of port chatting to you. So how sad are we, hey? Okay.
I'm not sad at all. I'm very happy
Indeed.
with 4 hours to go.
Right, Greg, interestingly, I'll just finish off on Brexit. The good news is that the pound sterling is holding up well against the US dollar. This week, both the Fed and the Bank of England decided not to lower interest rates. So both of them have maintained more or less a degree of parity between one another. Or the sterling has strengthened just ever so slightly more against the dollar, in fact. However, what is causing a little concern generally is that the stock markets are down again. The FTSE index is closed down 95. The Dow Jones at this moment, as we speak, is down 544 points. So it's back to 28,315. It was heading towards well over 29,000, and 30,000 was in sight. We also have the DAX index down 175, the Euro index down 49. The Nikkei, ironically, is the one that is up 227, but the Hang Seng index is down 136. And to be candid, most of the European, Middle Eastern, African, and American indices are down. In addition, gold is a little bit up, not hugely, but it started the week at 1571. It's been as low as 1563, but it's now 1584. And silver hasn't performed quite so well as gold, although it is now currently holding just above $18, as we predicted it would earlier this week. It did fall as low as 1739, but we've said because of the coronavirus, do not be surprised to see silver jump up to $18 and then possibly trying to hit our 1850 in the very near future, and gold moving to $1,600. Well, gold hasn't quite reached 1,600 yet, but what's happening? Should people be seriously worried? And is there more concern today than you had a few days ago when we had our last discussion? And I shall slurp my port while you answer that question.
It's quite clear to me that we should not be worried, but we should be intelligently concerned. This is being reflected by the world stock markets. Gold and silver are basically gambling chips on a relatively loaded table. It is foolish to consider giving a long-term prognosis on what will happen to gold and silver in the light of the coronavirus, especially when you think that at the moment, 9,934 people have the disease, virus, whatever you want to call it, a novel coronavirus, and there have been 213 deaths in China, where it started out. Therefore, it is worth taking very seriously and making intelligent provision where you are able to, particularly if you are in countries that are less well equipped to deal with such events that outside of the Western zone, America, Canada, Australia, the Anglosphere in general, and Europe, where there are in most countries fairly good facilities for quarantine. As to stock markets falling, I am not remotely surprised when you think that this virus already is showing signs that it will, dare I say, outperform in terms of creating deaths. At the outbreak of SARS, with some, as I recall, 770 deaths by the time it was finished. M1, N2, or was it M3? I can't remember, but it was commonly known as bird flu, which produced some deaths, and MERS, which was Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, where the death rate was around 800 and something. SARS was in 2003 and cost the economies of the world at that stage an estimated sum in excess of 40 billion. That's a lot to wipe off of the economies of the world with no recoup position. And this particular virus looks as if it could be consequentially worse. It looks almost certain that it will be. What we don't know is the extent to which we can confine it. Australia has so far isolated the virus. That leaves it with best part of 6 months work, to, however hard they try, to cultivate it, to define it accurately, and to show some signs of providing a vaccine that will secure people's future. Bear in mind that that's the simplest route to a solution. The more realistic route to a solution is that there will not be a vaccine available for this on a widespread basis for probably 18 months. And when you think how many years it took for us to fail to have an actual vaccine against AIDS, it gives one pause for thought as to what this particular virus, the novel coronavirus, could become. Now, China has 9,782 cases. Thailand 19, Japan 17, Singapore 16, Hong Kong 12, South Korea 11, Taiwan 10, Australia 9, Malaysia 8, Macau 7, Germany 6, United States 6, France 6, Vietnam 5, United Arab Emirates 4, Canada 3, Italy, United Kingdom and Russia 2, the Philippines, Nepal, India, Finland, Sri Lanka, Cambodia and Sweden 1. That have been discovered and identified to date. I stress that because it does look as if the incubation period of this virus is from between 2 and 14 days, which, if you think that one through, is a fairly terrifying thought, because we are now up to 9,782 in China alone, where the first cases were identified less than a week ago, and already there are 213 deaths. The 9,782 identified so far will have met and mixed with and can reasonably be believed to have infected a number of people. Even if you take low infection rates of 2 to 3 newly infected from each identified case to date, with a fatality rate of only 2 per 100, these figures start to be exponential and pretty damn terrifying. At which stage I'm going to cough, and I haven't met anyone from China for a very long time.
Well, while you cough, Greg, just a quick correction. I think the first case was identified 2 weeks ago. You said a week ago, but we were even speaking about this a week ago. So I suspect you probably meant 2 weeks ago.
No, the first deaths.
Oh, the first death. But
Yeah.
Also, interestingly, now it's not often we quote this fellow, but listeners will be aware of a certain gentleman called Gerald Celente. Now, he publishes something called the Trends Journal, and Gerald is very much a gold bug. But he actually undertook an interview on Kitco News, today, in fact. And this is just an excerpt. I'll just read it. And this has surprised me, really, because if anything, Gerald is a little bit of a fearmonger. He says, the coronavirus fears are overhyped. The hysteria is not justified. The fear around the coronavirus around the world has now escalated, but the relatively small fatality rate does not justify all the hysteria. Quote, fear is an easy thing to sell, whether it's in war or weather or this, but the numbers aren't showing it, unquote. How would you respond to that, Greg?
As I did when I opened up, when you first asked me. We would be foolish not to be concerned. That's not fear. I don't fear it, but I am concerned that it could be a major global pandemic killing tens of thousands of people. That's not fear. That's a pragmatic and intelligent look at the worst case scenarios. That somebody without any more qualification than me in this particular field makes a statement of his personal belief, well, good luck to him. I expect David Icke's blaming it on lizards. I don't believe him either. I hope that answers your question.
They say it came from a snake, didn't they? I think so. Maybe I could be right. You never know. Okay. So generally, Greg, what you've mentioned that certain countries at least appear to have achieved a level of containment in as much that they have placed people in hospital or...
No, I didn't make that claim.
Oh, you mentioned Australia's managed to achieve a degree of containment, I thought you said.
No. I said they had managed to isolate the virus.
Right.
Not isolate the transmission of it. You can isolate the virus with luck, a following wind, and the right abilities from just one case. Mm-hmm. They only have 9 cases in Australia, mm-hmm. and they have managed to find what the virus is. They haven't necessarily contained it. I have no idea how many people have traveled from China, a hot area, to Australia. It could be 10 plane loads. I've no idea.
Right.
No country on this list has managed to contain the virus. They may be taking steps to contain it, just as Britain is, where the 2 individuals who were diagnosed, I believe it was some 16 hours ago, had in fact presented with symptoms, but shown up as negative some 5 or 6 days ago, who were staying in a hotel, and it's 2 members of the same family staying in a hotel, represented and showed up this time with the same symptoms, but the virus was declared that they had that virus. We are in the season of winter colds and coughs, as I displayed just now, and there's no major signs of flu around at the moment. That doesn't mean to say nobody's got flu. However, one looks around amongst one's friends and acquaintances, and you'll notice an awful lot of them over the Christmas period, for instance, developed really bad colds. That doesn't mean they're in any way connected with the coronavirus. However, we have now identified these 2 individuals from the same family who were staying in a hotel, have now been admitted to a secure isolation ward, actually top floor in Newcastle, I presume Newcastle General Hospital, where they are in full isolation, and I believe they are subjects of barrier nursing in its extreme, and I believe they are in facilities which are negative atmosphere, which means that that atmosphere does not escape. There is, if any, draft coming in from outside all the time, and the air that is being used in there is being in some way processed and washed to make it secure before there's any risk of it passing out into the atmosphere around the hospital. So we are doing what we can. We had 83 individuals return today from Wuhan, and they landed at Brize Norton just after lunch today and will be arriving at a secure facility in the Wirral, where they will be housed for 14 days, and they are being given a block of flats adjoining the hospital, but not in any way connected to the hospital, where they will remain in isolation. Presumably, if anyone develops the symptoms, they will then be put into secure medical isolation. They are being held in this facility where they are not allowed to meet any member of their family or friends for 14 days, although they will be able to communicate with them by telephone and through the internet.
Greg, it's interesting. England's chief medical officer, Chris Whitty, has actually stated to the press, and I'll quote, "This could turn out to be a relatively minor infection, as there was only a 2% mortality rate." Is that a minor infection?
As long as you're in the 98%, it's fairly irrelevant. However, it wasn't thought minor enough to have the drivers of the coaches that moved from the airport of entry to the Wirral with the 83 people off the aeroplane driving in any form in a normal manner. I notice they were driving in full biohazard suits with hoods and face masks. So I don't think we're treating it as minor. We may be allaying, should I say, the fears, and we may be doing it with adequate justification that people are fundamentally safe in these United Kingdoms. But do bear in mind, there are many countries around the world where there are Chinese labor and management who are supplied directly from China. I think, for instance, of much of Africa, where Chinese companies take a great deal of interest in the economies of those countries. And if it started to run in those countries, I think it could become very major in those countries. And saying that there are only approximately 2%, we don't know how many people will yet present with the problem. And actually, at the moment, with 9,782 individuals in China, 2% starts to be a somewhat larger and more significant number than saying only 2%. Because this is early days, very early days. Now, it could die out tomorrow, and there might not be another case reported. We don't know how this disease is going to map out, for the simple reason it just hasn't been going statistically long enough. So I think he's wrong.
I wouldn't disagree, Greg. To say it's only a 2% mortality rate, to me, that's relatively high, because if you've got 10,000 people infected, that immediately tells you 200 are going to die. If you have 100,000 infected, then 2,000 are going to die. And if 1 million are infected, then 20,000 are going to die. But I can understand why he is saying this. They're trying to prevent any form of panic.
And I have no intention of causing panic in anyone. I am saying, what are the pragmatic possibilities?
Indeed.
And I'm saying it to what I believe from the numerous podcasts and the extensive interest and intelligent comments that have been made on it. I am discussing this not with the general ill-informed public, but with an informed and interested audience who can differentiate between these statistics, between fear, panic, and pragmatism. Be prepared, prepare for the worst, and hope for the best.
And on that, I think it's a good time to end the conversation, but other than to say that tomorrow we'll be providing our gold and silver weekly update. You're having a discussion with Journo Marcus. What's the topic for our Inner Sanctum members, so they will look forward to it on Sunday? What's the topic you and Marcus are going to discuss?
We have no choice, really, but to say, here we are at Brexit. It's now happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we would be foolish to overlook the coronavirus.
Indeed.
And those will be the cornerstones of our discussion, although it's likely to be a little more free-ranging.
Greg, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
We hope you found this video interesting and informative. And if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer. Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.